Welcome back to La Collector, the art scene delivered. Today, we're stepping out of New York and into Austin, where the energy is hot, the tacos are good, and the art scene is thriving. Hunter Ash is a painter based in Austin, Texas, creating richly layered abstract works that feel emotional, intuitive, and deeply human. Her paintings aren't about perfection, they're about movement, vulnerability, and the kind of feeling you recognize before you can name it. She's a rising artist whose work is all about translating the emotional human experience into color, texture, and movement. She's been featured in Tribeza, shown at Big Medium's Austin studio tour, and even caught the eye of Kendra Scott. And we did go to middle school and high school together, so this one is very full circle. In this episode, we'll talk about what it really looks like to build an art career, even outside of New York and LA, and why Austin's creative scene is having a moment. We'll also see how Hunter found her voice after taking a very unexpected path into the art world. We get into studio routines, creative blocks, and the fear of knowing when to stop a painting, and why sometimes hating the work is actually part of the process. We'll talk about faith, emotion, and what it means to make art that people actually want to live with. This conversation feels like a deep exhale, honest, thoughtful, and full of reminders that art doesn't have to be a shout to be powerful. If you've ever wondered what artists actually do to live, work, and build something meaningful on their own terms, this one is for you. Please welcome the incredible Hunter Ash. So Hunter, welcome to the podcast today.
Hello, I'm so excited. Thank you.
Me too. Hunter, we literally haven't chatted in forever.
I know, it's been so long.
It's been so long. But I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about what you're doing in Austin and all that good stuff. But yeah, I want to know a little bit more. How is the Austin art scene? Do you feel like there's a lot of creative energy there? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's so good to talk to you because, I mean, growing up in the same hometown, like such a small town, Basalt was just such a great place to grow up. But I think I wasn't super exposed to like a lot of different art opportunities. There's some great artists there, but I think whenever I left Colorado and went to school. And then my first introduction to Austin was when I did an internship here my junior year. And so over the summer, I was kind of exposed to just the community of Austin, the art scene of Austin, the creative energy here. And then I was kind of hooked. So I moved back right after I graduated and I've loved it. I love Austin. I love the people here. It's a little bit different from Colorado for sure. But I've loved just getting to meet different artists, getting to kind of understand where my place is in the art scene here and in different parts of Texas. But yeah, I have really loved it. I feel super grateful to do what I do. It feels kind of surreal sometimes.
What kind of like got you into art? Was it in college initially that just kind of like, what's your story going from, not really doing too much art in Colorado and then going to Baylor? And I feel like that's where it really picked up.
Yes. Yeah. I actually started as a pre-med biology major. So I studied science for a year and it just was not fitting. It was not clicking. And I was super unhappy by the end of my freshman year. And I remember I came home and my dad suggested that I change majors. And he said, you should just look into art degree programs. So I did. I started calling different people, either in my sorority or that I had met freshman year that were in the art program. And Baylor has a smaller art department. And so it was kind of hard to find people that were in the art program to even ask, like, hey, what's your experience? But I did. I switched my major. And the first week of my art classes, I just remember being so emotional. I would cry leaving the art building because I was so filled with just like almost joy and peace that I hadn't been able to experience otherwise in my previous classes. And so it felt like I had finally found sort of a way to pursue something that had always just been a hobby or like an escape. I had really been creative my whole life, but I think art was always a way of sort of retreating into myself and finding an escape from things that I didn't fully know how to process in the world around me. Like art was my safe space. Yeah, in college, it sort of broke open for me of like, oh, this is maybe something that I could do professionally. Like that was just not really something I had explored before. So that's how I got started.
And so When you were starting to kind of explore, at Baylor, how did you kind of land on your signature style that you are kind of that revolves around you now?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, school is such a cool, anyone that's like thinking about going to art school or taking classes, I'm like, I would love to go back to school because you learn so much and you get to try so many different mediums. And I loved art history and sculpting and ceramics and fabric textile design. So I think I got a chance to try a bunch of different art mediums. My major is in studio art, but I concentrated in graphic design. And
Interesting. Okay.
so for a while, yeah, it's so different maybe than from
Yes.
what people see me doing now.
I feel like most college degrees are that way, to be honest. So,
Yes. Yes. Well, and I truly thought graphic design was more responsible. I was like, oh, how do I do art, but do it kind of responsibly to where I might get a job after school? So I did freelance design for a while. I actually also worked for an advertising company in my internship in
okay.
Austin doing graphic design. And again, I just couldn't find a way to really truly express everything I felt I wanted to express through art, doing designs for different businesses or doing maybe more corporate designs.
Yeah.
So I just like loaded my classes with painting classes. All my extra art classes, you could say, were
Mm-hmm.
painting. And I love my painting professor. She was an abstract painter. So really
Okay.
she influenced me. Her name's Winter Ruslowski. She's amazing. She's super talented, but she really her art, her style, her inspiration, it really influenced my kind of curiosity into the abstract painting world. And then just honestly learning about other artists that had kind of paved a way for themselves through art. Heather Day is a current artist that
Oh,
I'm
I love
obsessed with.
her.
She does
Yeah.
abstract. Oh my gosh, yeah, she's been a huge inspiration for me. And same with Emily Eisenhart. She's an Austin-based artist that I
Oh,
love and super like really admire. So I think the influence of other artists and sort of their style and their practice really inspired me, especially female artists. That was just huge. That kind of
yeah.
inspired my desire to do abstract painting. And so it's evolved for sure. I think it's taken me, I mean, I graduated 6 years ago and I've been kind of molding and shaping my style, my practice ever since then. So it's still kind of a journey that's evolving. But
I feel like
yeah,
it's also never ending. Like you're always evolving
yes,
yourself, and it's
yes.
something that makes art so fun as an artist is you can look
Mm-hmm.
at early works and be like, "Wow, I'm a completely different person than I was then."
Yes. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
really cool to kind of see that journey in your art too.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so exciting and sometimes it can be daunting too because I think it says a lot about sort of what artists are trying to navigate or exploring, or it's kind of vulnerable sometimes. It's out
It's
there
very
for the world to
vulnerable.
see of like, oh, what am I exploring? Everyone gets to see it. So
Exactly. But that's what makes
yeah.
it so powerful too, that
Yeah.
vulnerability piece. Okay, so speaking of all of this stuff, what does a typical day like in the studio look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've actually found that breaking up my work week is really helpful.
Okay.
So I paint fully at least 3 days a week. I try to have 3 studio days where I don't feel pressure to get anything else done except for paint. So
Okay.
Mondays and Fridays are my days and everyone does this differently, but Mondays and Fridays, I really do a lot of the administrative stuff.
Okay.
And it's not like I don't check my email, Tuesday through Thursday, but I normally start my day with a walk and coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. And then I'm very intentional with my mornings. So I spend time reading and writing and journaling. And then about like 9:30, 10 a.m., I'll dive into working. And sometimes that looks like creating a commission piece and starting on something that I've been working on for weeks. Sometimes it looks like starting a new painting series. So I think juggling the flexibility and the hours that I can kind of move around has been tricky because setting
Yeah.
my own schedule, yeah, is sometimes difficult. And it's sometimes hard to not have a boss or somebody to report to.
Yeah.
And so I've enjoyed that flexibility, but I think I do thrive in structure. So having a structured work week is good for me. And then throughout my Tuesday through Thursday studio time, I can make a mess and I can play with paints and I can sort of hone in on the things that need to be more organized and precise and finished, if that makes sense. So, um, And then occasionally I'll say like, oh, wow, I have an afternoon. I'm going to go on a walk with a friend, or I can go to this gallery visit, and so it shifts a lot. There's a lot of moving parts, but I think that having a consistent time to paint is really important. And so I try to protect my studio hours and my work
Totally.
week. Otherwise it can get very, yeah, almost too loose, if that makes sense.
100%. And
Yeah.
so, question for you, what is the most, like, daunting experience? Is, like, a white canvas, a blank canvas just
Ooh.
so challenging, or is it finishing the painting? What's the most daunting part of the process?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So I actually love looking at a blank canvas. It's
Okay.
so exciting. I think that part is a really fun first step. I think that I always say this, but I hate a painting before I love it. Every painting I work on, I always hate it at some point in the painting process before I enjoy it. I think
Mhm.
that point is the most daunting because it's either there's sort of a fork in the road at a there's a time where it's either going to be a piece that I love or that I might have to scrap and kind of start over on. And so I think that point where it's hard to know when to stop or it's hard to know when to keep working. I think that's maybe the most daunting is the times where I feel frustrated or where I can't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of abstract art too is knowing when to maybe stop or knowing when to remove things or when to add or when to mold something further.
Yeah.
But a blank canvas is really fun, actually. I love supplies too. Like I love just buying new supplies. So a new canvas is fun.
Okay. I can definitely see that being like when to stop because you can always keep adding. So it's that finding that balance
Yes,
of like it is complete. And I feel like so
totally.
many artists go back to paintings years later and they're like, it's never done.
Yeah.
It's one of those
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so next question for you. I have so many
Yeah.
questions, Hunter.
I'm loving
Um,
this. You're great
okay,
at asking
good.
questions. Yeah.
So where do you find your source of inspiration? I know you talked about journaling, like protecting your mornings, even just like Austin in general. Do you feel like you're pulling from like
Yeah.
emotions, thoughts? Are you pulling from the scenery or people? Like, what's kind of your inspiration for
Yeah.
your art?
Yes. I love kind of explaining my process as being inspired by the human experience,
Ooh.
and specifically the emotional experience. And so I I am an emotional person. I love sort of diving into other people's emotional um, realm. And so a lot of my paintings are inspired by kind of what that looks like for me and what I've experienced that looking like for other people. I also love nature. I love being outside. I love being exposed to nature. And so a lot of my paintings have natural color schemes and natural elements. And so it's sort of a blend between sense of place, lived experience in the natural world, the things around me and the world around me and how we internalize all of those things. And then the painting is sort of a result of that expression of, yeah, what one feels when they sort of absorb and interpret the world around them. And a huge element of my practice is also faith. I am a Christian and I love sort of tying that into my painting because I think that's such a huge part of why I became an artist is I think that believing that we're all made to be creative in some way has been really yeah, just special to me and cool to explore and really fun to also engage with others in. Even with commissioned
Yeah.
paintings, it's fun to include other people in that process and say, it can tell your story or kind of help try to tell your story through painting in a way that you might not be exposed to otherwise. And so that's also really inspiring. Yeah. So a lot of it is kind of complex, but that's long story short.
No, but the complex things are the reason that there's so much depth to the work. So I love it. Now, what if there's a day you're like, first day of your 3-day week and the creativity is just not flowing? What do you do to
Yeah.
kind of shake it up, get
Yeah.
into that creative flow?
Oh, that's a good question. Oftentimes, I'll go on a walk or I'll try to move my body or try to get outside of my space, my studio itself.
Hmm.
If that doesn't work, oftentimes I'll start really small. So I'll take a Sharpie and I will do almost like a warm up. It sounds silly, but I'll either squiggle with a Sharpie like 10 different sketches and they don't have to look like anything, but it's kind of just to get in the practice of moving my hands and moving my brain and connecting my brain to my hand and the movement that I see on paper. That helps a lot. Sometimes I'll journal, so I'll give myself, 30 minutes to journal and get all my thoughts down on paper. I think sometimes when I'm not feeling creative, it can be because I'm either feeling a creative block. Like
Mhm.
literally I'm stuck
Yeah.
or I just have too many thoughts in my brain to kind of filter through. And then sometimes I'll go on Pinterest and I'll just look at other people's artwork and that's inspirational. Like I think seeing
Sure.
other people's art is always inspiring because it kind of reminds you that there's like other people out there doing a similar thing. And so that's kind of maybe part of yeah, that's part of what I do. I think the creative block is so real. Sometimes it's
Yes.
just hard to get started. And so, obviously, I think there's been times where I just feel stuck and you have to give yourself grace because sometimes you're not going to always feel like peak creativity
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it does come, do you feel like you go outside of your structure of 3 days? Like, say it's like
Oh,
Friday and you're
totally.
just like, I'm like, it's
Yes.
with me today, so I need to paint.
Yes, totally. Well, and I joke about this, but I think I'm like undiagnosed ADD for sure. Like I can really get in the creative zone. And when I get really excited about creating, sometimes I can work on, I mean, I'm always working on more than one painting at a time. But if you walk in my studio, sometimes there's like an acrylic pour piece on the floor and I have 3 or 4 different paintings going on the floor. And then I have one on my canvas. And so I do think when I feel ultimate creative freedom, that stress of the chaos kind of falls to the background and I
Yeah.
can just enjoy what I'm making because it's part of the process is enjoying the mess until you get to the
100%.
finished product. Yeah.
100%. Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Okay. How
Yeah.
is it building an art career in Austin versus somewhere like LA or New York where they have like huge art scenes? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I wish I was probably, I'm not sure I'm the best person to speak to all the other art scenes because Austin's the only place I've ever done it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I know there's other artists who have like moved to LA and then moved back to Austin or worked in New York for a little bit. So Austin's all I've ever known. And I love the growing. Austin's such a fast growing city.
It
When
is.
I moved here, in 2018, the art scene felt thriving and special and very obvious, but it's changed a lot. It's growing a lot. There's more galleries, there's more artists, there's more collectors. The collector scene is different. The tech
Okay.
industry is growing a ton.
Yep.
There's a lot of young professionals here that I think are excited to dive into the Austin art scene. There's music. I could go on and on about all the things you probably heard about Austin. But I think that one thing I've loved is like the small sense of community. Like Austin
Yeah.
just feels like a small world. The more people you meet, the more you realize like people know each other and you can go to a gallery showing or show up to the Austin Studio Tour. The Austin Studio Tour is a huge citywide self-guided art event. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
most artists in Austin can sign up and show their artwork in their own space, in their own
Wow.
studio without being represented by a gallery, without honestly needing a ton of connections. That's kind of how I first started
Yeah.
getting to know people and showing my art. And so that I also think says a lot about Austin's culture. They want to support emerging artists. I think it also is fun to find the artists you love because
Yeah.
a lot of times artists are doing this part-time or they're working out of their home studio or so I think that there is a true love for art but also just like the small connected feel that Austin offers. And it's been a great place to be an up and coming emerging artist. I think I felt supported. I think in some other cities maybe it could feel really competitive or really
Yeah.
cutthroat. And I think that like the Southern hospitality and the Austin culture is just really conducive also to the Austin art scene. Maybe others would speak differently to that, but I think that it's been a great place to get started for sure.
Oh, I love that. I've been to Austin a few times and it is just such a creative hotspot. So it's really fun to go and see. And I love that they
Yeah.
have the infrastructure to kind of support emerging artists. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And it's growing. It's just getting more and more so. Like there's a couple new art fairs that are popping up and yeah, I'm just excited to see where it goes for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So like three more questions for you, and
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
Yeah.
But so you talked about kind of becoming, getting into this open studio tour. What have been some big turning points for you in your art career?
That's a good question. The studio tour is it has such a special place in my heart. I remember the second year I did the studio tour. It was the first time I showed in my own sort of studio space. And
Okay.
I had like put a lot of effort into making my home studio a space where people felt welcomed, where they felt engaged, like they could engage with me as an artist. Um, and I remember selling my first like really large scale piece of artwork.
Okay.
And I think it was like a 4 by 6 foot painting. And as an artist that wants to work large scale and really does want my pieces to impact people in a big way, that was really huge. I think that was super encouraging that I could, and affirming that I could sell large paintings and that I should keep working on large scale art. So that was a big one for me. I also I think one turning point in my career was I did some work with a local jewelry brand. I had
Kendra
some.
Scott, right?
Yes, that's a recent project. Yes, Kendra
Okay.
Scott is so exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
The project I was talking about actually was, have you heard of Love Welt?
Okay.
They just commissioned me to do a few different custom paintings for their showroom spaces.
Wow. Okay.
And like, long story short, one thing led to the next. And I think that has kind of opened up the world of possibilities in terms of like working with brands and sort of
Yeah.
having my artwork in, more corporate spaces, because that's a huge goal of mine, is just to like work with more brands and kind of keep that relationship growing and developing. So yeah, that's been huge. And that's so exciting because I think it, again, is just so affirming, and I'm so grateful. It's like really cool to see your work in Kendra Scott or in, like a retail space. It's just exciting.
100%.
So yeah.
And so what do you think, what do you hope for when people live with your paintings or take your paintings home? What do you want their relationship with your artwork to feel like?
That's such a good question. Honestly, I think about this a lot because I think the reality is some people won't always love every painting I make. And so when people do fall in love with a painting or they really resonate with it, to me, it's like so much just, it's such a sweet response. And I want it to feel like a hug. I want it to feel like a connection. And I want people to be able to look at a piece of artwork and be honest about how they feel. Because I think that an honest appreciation for art that you love, it means a lot when you look at it every day and you can be inspired by the artist's story and maybe how it connects to your own life. And I think ultimately I want people to hopefully see it as an inspiration to find ways to be creative in their own lives, whether it's, I don't know, through cooking or through their job, their full-time job, or finding a side, avenue of just like making something. Because I think that the more you can add to the world, the better in your own way. So I don't know if that answers your question. Every painting is different. I love hearing how people connect to them. Yeah, I've had people come up to me and say like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this painting. It reminded me of some story." And that's totally not why I painted it. That's not the story I had in mind. But it's really special to hear what other people see in abstract artwork, because I think it's so open for interpretation. And that is also what I love about it too.
Yes, I love that too in art. So, okay, so someone who is like starting to collect and wants to like get some abstract work, what would you tell them to look for and what would you tell them to avoid?
That's a good question. Gosh, wish I was more of a collector, honestly. I think maybe it comes back to buying art that you love. I think sometimes people can get really excited about the idea of treating art as an investment, which I think is a great point. But I think buying art that you love and that you enjoy is really important. And I would look at local artists, like wherever you are, wherever you're living, I would try to find local art. I think buying art online is such a great tool that we have these days. Like, people have great websites and there's amazing resources online. But if you can find a local art fair and follow an artist from sort of an earlier spot, I think it'll also kind of grow your affection for art and grow your affection for the artists themselves. I would go to gallery showings. I would maybe connect with the local art advisors, but I think maybe avoid the temptation to buy art as an investment and buy art you love, because the longer you collect art that just speaks to your soul, I think the more pride you're going to find in your art collection. And especially if you're starting out as a collector, original art can get pricey. And so, if you're going to spend the money on art that you you really want in your house, I think you're going to be more proud of your collection, years later. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
That
kind of how I
does.
approach it.
That does. That does. Hunter, this has been so fun. I have really enjoyed this. It's been so nice to catch up and get to hear from you on like your journey. You are actually the very first guest on Law Collector
Yay.
podcast.
I'm so glad to hear it. Yay. Well, I can't
So,
wait to hear more of your guests speak and listen to your
yes.
podcast. This is so exciting. I'm always listening to podcasts while I'm painting. I spend a lot of time alone, a lot of time with audiobooks, so a lot of time with podcasts. So I'm very excited.
We're very
And I'm
excited.
so excited to, just hear more of what you're unpacking through this process. So
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to get this out to everybody else.
awesome. Me too. Well, thanks, Mackenzie.
Thanks. Right. For everyone listening, you can follow Hunter on Instagram at hunterash.art and check out all of her work at www.hunter-ash.com. I'll drop all the links in the show notes. And if you loved this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs a little creativity in their life. Until next time.